Hi everyone, it's Alison here from Starzology again. This time we're going to be doing a featured chart on the visionary explorer Elon Musk, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. What I particularly like about doing featured charts is that I usually choose people who are creative or inspirational or visionaries in some way, explorers, or those who are actually pushing the envelope. I'm looking for people who maybe are artists, musicians, or I do like creative people, so that's why Elon has come into this featured chart selection for me. Just by the way, I don't usually do featured charts on politicians or mass murderers. I'm not very much into that at all. So anyway, so let's have a look at it. So Elon Musk was interestingly born in Pretoria, South Africa, which is where I lived for over 30 years. Well, not Pretoria, but South Africa itself. And if you know me, you will know that I've moved around the country there with quite a bit of time in those areas. But of course, I have visited Pretoria, but that's just by the way. Elon then eventually moved to Canada, became a Canadian, and then moved down to the United States, and that's where he's established his home. So in a way, there's some very slim parallels we're going to talk about there, but anyway. So let's just get down to the chart. So I have it here handily on my iPad, what I'm talking to you about, but I'm also going to put the image up there for you to have a look at. So he was born on June 28th, 1971 in Pretoria, and we don't have a birth time. So the way you actually get around that is when the time is unknown for a chart, you actually cast the chart then for 12 noon, because in that way it will only be 12 hours out either way, and then you can consider the other placements in the chart, and particularly the moon. You might want to just, if we know that the moon moves 13 degrees in one day, so that's 24 hours, and therefore we can say that it moves 7.5 degrees in 12 hours. If you cast a noon chart, the moon will only be a maximum of 7 degrees off its correct position. And what that means is that if it's well within the sign, you know that it's definitely in that sign. But if it's on a cusp of a sign, it could be in either. And if we just have a look at his moon there in the 12 o'clock position, it's at 11 degrees Virgo. So we know that he's definitely did have that Virgo moon, because even if it was 7 hours earlier, it would have still been in Virgo. Because we're using the noon chart as well, you actually cannot use the ascendant and the house cusps, which is quite a chunk. But what it means is that you take some things out of the chart, but although they're still in the diagram, one dismisses it. But the point is that what remains is correct, so we can definitely use that. Yeah, so that's one of the tricks when working with a noon chart. So Elon has an emphasis on the water and air elements, so this means that his inspiration and emotions are closely linked. When making decisions, he's more likely to go with his gut instincts than, although considering the intellectual, in the end that will be the way that it will go. There is a lack of the fire element, which generally indicates there will be weak inspiration, but we can see that this is actually counterbalanced by the two fire planets, Mars and Jupiter, being very well placed and engaged in his chart. So I will also be adding in the links below on the show notes the actual link through to the website where you could see his chart in full detail. Okay. So he has the Sun in Cancer, which and it's clearly high on the chart, but that's because we have a noon chart. But this indicates that actually probably his life is going to be his family, and that support that he received early on will get him through the rest of his life, and he will build on that. Also that when he actually does create people around him, they will be his family as well, even if his family is actually not with him. You also see that in his chart he's got the Venus in the Oriental position, which is always a strong position for Venus, and this indicates that people will actually love his story before they've even met him, that the way he is announced and promoted and his reputation that goes ahead will actually be very delightful, and people will want to say they want to be his friend. They want to reach out and have a part of him almost, which is pretty much the case. We also then see that Mercury is in the Occidental position, and that then shows us that after you've met this man, you go away with ideas in your head and you're talking about it for an awfully long time. You're more likely to keep out in communication with him. And clearly there are many, many people who want to know who he is and what's going on in his life. Yeah. The crescent moon phase, which is in his chart, shows us that there is a potential of things to come. This is a phase of actually where symbolically the shoot of the plant has actually come through, and this is reflected in his life, that the potential, because it's in the waxing phase, its full potential has not as yet been reached, and it will be developed through this particular lifetime that he has. He also has the moon in Virgo, which we know, I did speak about that a little bit earlier, and it definitely is in Virgo. So what does this bring? It brings an emotional component to detailed work. And although he has a million things on his plate, he's actually going to be able to focus in on detail to make sure that things are working the way he wants to. And although this may bypass the average man in the street, he's not actually trying to be picky, as Virgos can be, to pick out errors and so on. But he wants the actual production, the final, what is created from all of this work to be perfect, and that is the drive of the Virgo moon. So if he doesn't like the way something's going, he's still once more going to go with that gut feeling to bring it up to par and up to how he wants it to be. In Elon's chart, there's a very interesting moon Mercury mutual reception, and what that means is that the moon is in Mercury's sign, because the moon is in Virgo, and Mercury's in the moon sign, which is Cancer. So both of these planets are in each other's signs. This actually creates a connection. Although we will see there is a sextile in the chart, we have to dismiss that because of the moon's position due to the new chart, but we do know that there is this connection. So this brings his ability to express his thoughts in an emotional way, so much so that people will buy into, with their brains, what he's actually saying and want to get behind what it is. It's creating an emotional context to the words he's going to use. So as a speaker, and when he's actually motivating his troops, he's going to be able to connect to them on an emotional level during the business of bringing it together as family, and people will want to follow him virtually to the ends of the earth. There is a major aspect pattern in his chart. It's the T-square. If you can see it, it's Uranus opposition Chiron, and both square to Mercury, creating a T-square with Mercury as the focal point. So what this is going to bring is the technology, which is the Uranus, and the science behind everything he does, going against his gift, which is the Chiron. These two are going to work together, and it will all come out through the Mercury, which is the focal point, so that when he actually speaks, and his ideas will be the things that we will remember this man for in years to come. Not necessarily his casual repartee, but what he did, and his name will be known as it is to many, many people through the pressure of this T-square for scientific and the gift to humanity this is providing. Whether or not you actually go with that at all, a lot of people will take Chiron as the wounded healer. I do acknowledge that, and perhaps there is something in there that he wants to prove himself over and above that Uranus, and that again will come through the technology and the name he's made for himself there. Also, we realize that he's running a Tesla and PayPal as well, and that Mercury is an indication there that that there was a shift there in the actual banking, and the ability for the everyday man to work with money has been brought in through that way. That through the internet, which is the Uranus, we can send money back and forth, as we all do these days. Well, if you don't, you should be, right? And then moving on, I'm just looking at some of my notes here on the side. We've got this good Saturn trine Pluto aspect, harnessing the power of determination, which will encourage Elon to actually succeed. And Jupiter conjunct Neptune, both in Pisces, or both the Pisces planets, shows the exploration and visionary are brought together to make something big. This is the sign of a dreamer, the actual Jupiter conjunct the Neptune. Then the Jupiter opposition Saturn, and both of these planets are also contra-parallel, which is interesting because they're both opposite by longitude, but they're also opposite in declination. That means they are equally, one is above and one is below the celestial equator to each other. So it's like a double whammy opposition between these two planets, Jupiter and Saturn. So it's the planets of give and take, expansion and contraction. So there's a bit of a constraint there. So basically, he can strive towards massive journeys without compromising his core goals. We're not sure this aspect will be the energy that keeps him awake at night, because he wants to do so much with that Jupiter, and yet there will be limitations to what he can do. Although he's doing so much more than every other person that I know, he still wants to do more, and that's quite a driver for him as well, which is so interesting. And then the natal Saturn is opposite to Neptune, and again contra-parallel once more. So again, you've got this thing, because the Jupiter and Neptune are conjunct, both the Pisces ruling planets, and Neptune is also contra-parallel once more, again in the opposition to Saturn. Another double whammy on that opposition from the Jupiter-Neptune to, from the Jupiter-Neptune to the Saturn. So he likely to see things through colour and feel, and see the internal art they possess, because we're bringing in Neptune now. This shows the duality of confidence coupled with the fear of following his own rainbows. So although he is confident moving forward, he still is human and will have some of those issues. But this shows that these challenging oppositions in a chart, coupled with the T-squares, actually drive people's lives forward. So although you may think that squares and oppositions are bad things to have, which they're not really, they're the things that get you off the couch and get you to do something in life, which you can see quite clearly he's done. So then we're moving on. There's another major aspect pattern which is very interesting. It's the Thor's hammer, and this is where Mercury square Chiron, if you can see that, and both are sesquiquadrate Jupiter. They form the Thor's hammer major aspect pattern. So again, you've got Mercury square to Chiron, and both of those are sesquiquadrate to Jupiter. So Jupiter again will be the focal planet in the Thor's hammer. This is a manifesting major aspect pattern. There are only 8 harmonic aspects within this, the square and the sesquiquadrate, because we know that not all triangular major aspect patterns are created equal. This is different to a T-square, because here you've got that base of the square from the Mercury square in Chiron, bringing it to the Jupiter. So again, we have looked at this. Mercury is the focal planet of the T-square. We've seen that Chiron is there as well. But that square in that T-square is actually also pointing down to the Jupiter. So this drives the chart and the man. He may hesitate to speak up, but his actions will be his voice. He may feel his background is weak, but in time he will be lauded as a pioneer and explorer extraordinaire. In his own mind, he is still a young man who struggles to make idle chit-chat. So he is an explorer. It is pointing to Jupiter, the planet of exploration, the adventurer, the trailblazer, the man who walks over the cliff to where dragons be. This is what he is. He's got his Jupiter very well stimulated through that Thor's hammer's major aspect pattern. I can talk about the aspect patterns at a later time in greater detail, but anyway. So let's just have a look at the creativity within his chart. This is shown through all the quintiles. So again, Elon has several quintiles in his chart, and biquintiles, which are a product of the same calculation, dividing the 360 by 5 to get the quintile aspect, which is the aspect of creativity. It's an aspect I always look for when I'm doing charts for my clients, because it does show the creativity and what people really should be doing, what they think is fun. So we have this, Mars is conjunct the North Node in Aquarius, indicating unpredictable leadership, but the head of his tribe, he keeps everyone on their toes. This is the quintile arrow, and it is the one, it's Mars is biquintile to Pluto, and it's biquintile to Mercury, and Mercury and Pluto are quintile. So we're now bringing in 3 different things, and the quintile arrow is actually pointing to Mars. Get it? Okay. The Mercury and Pluto are quintile each other, and both are biquintile Mars. This forms the rare quintile arrow and points to Mars as the resolution for all his creative energy. He is truly a pioneer. In fact, he probably has many projects and ventures in the pipeline. He can turn his ability to any of them. This makes him a man's man and a no-nonsense kind of guy. So the creativity is coming. Mars is a symbol for young men. It's a symbol for gladiators, those who go out, and warriors as well. And it shows energy in a chart. And interestingly enough, I hear he said that he actually wants to be buried on Mars. He's hoping that science will move forward that far in recent months. So Mars, the planet, as a symbol in the astrology chart, is actually what he's aiming for with that quintile arrow in real life, by sending the Falcon Heavy up, and with the car that was with what's he called, Starman in it, sending the Tesla actually to orbit Mars, and it will come. So that's kind of, and of course it was a red car, which is by Mars as well. It's very interesting. So we also then have the Mars trining Venus shows he will relish beautiful woman on his arm. If she can communicate on his level or not will not matter to him. He's likely to have met the love of his life at his young age, and she may still have been it no matter who he meets in later life. The girl next door, he will use his early connection to the fairy sex as a yardstick with which to measure other women. So those early girlfriends whom we may never know who they were what he's measuring all women against, and he's actually in a way being pulled back to that first love or that first woman that he found attractive. So I don't want to talk too much about his love life, but there it is. That's an indication there as well. Mars is trine Venus, and that makes it easygoing, but it comes to his life early. So then the Sun biquintiles Neptune, which is just his vast imagination and how being identified with out-of-world things is this part of his life. Again, we've got a biquintile. The Sun is now biquintile Neptune. Not many charts have quintiles. Not many have as many as he has, and not many have all these biquintiles, and especially the quintile arrow. So it's bringing imagination is now being harnessed into the self. The imagination is the Neptune part. So it's he, because of his imagination, and you can imagine him as a young boy looking out the window, dreaming of all this exploration and how he was going to change the world through moving the money around in PayPal, the actual electric cars of Tesla, and the fun that goes into those vehicles that, although they may be out of most people's price range, there's a vision built into those cars. They're not just utilitarian. This is no Tupperware stuff coming off a production line. It's a new age. It's a new thought has gone into it, and he's actually put his heart, which is the Sun, and his imagination into everything he does. So it's very interesting. So on a closing, I'm saying he's a dreamer with a drive to make innovation. We have not seen all he can do yet. The best is yet to come. There are because he now has all these funds available, all this financial support, he virtually can really change the world through his innovation. But he's having fun doing it. So he's kind of, I don't know, he's an interesting guy, and that's why I actually thought that I would feature his chart this time. The features chart is something, it's like a section I've had on my Starzologer website for a while, and I've featured a couple of other entrepreneurs, a couple of people who are changing things for us today. I'm talking to you in 2018, and I will be bringing it in more through the videos as well, because it's a way for me to give a high-level interpretation of a chart of somebody that we all kind of know, or you can certainly find out who this guy is, rather than just doing somebody or other or the guy next door. Featured charts are interesting, and you can also suggest in the comments below if you would like to have somebody specifically featured, and I will be doing their chart. Also, because this is actually my 10th video on YouTube, so hallelujah, we got this far. You may not know, but anyway, each month that a video that I do get videos out, that one of them has the opportunity for you to get your own chart featured, and this will be a high-level interpretation of your chart here on YouTube, much as I just did for Elon Musk. And this particular video is the one for February 2018, and if you want to be in the running to get your chart featured, you need to be a subscriber and write your comment with your birth date in the comments below. And then on the first week in March, we will do a draw, and one lucky person will actually be able to get their chart done by me. And hopefully you're going to find that interesting. If you want to use a pseudonym, you can. I don't need to know all your details, but you do need to be a subscriber, and you do need to comment below in this video, and only this video, for the February 2018. So if that interests you, certainly go ahead and do that. And for everybody else, please do subscribe and support me here at YouTube. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.